Welcome back to Mining Stock Daily. Ian Wagner here live from Frankfurt for the Deutsche Goldmesse. And despite us being at a gold conference, the word of the day does seem to be copper. And we are going to talk copper and gold with Pan Global Resources. They trade on the TSX Venture under the symbol PGZ and host a market cap of about $60 million Canadian. We are joined by Tim Moody, the CEO of Pan Global. Tim, welcome to Frankfurt and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Likewise. Well, let's jump in. I spoke with Jason, your VP of IR at PDAC in Toronto. You guys have a couple of projects on the ground there in Spain, La Romana and Carmenes up north. Give us a breakdown of just kind of remind anyone who's new to the story what these assets are and how you want to position them.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I say, we're primarily focused in Spain, 2 projects. We have a new maiden copper resource, open pit, in an area where we're surrounded by big producers and mine operating mines. But it's the upside around that, which is particularly exciting. We just won a big area that's trebled our land position. It did that through a public tender. In competition with 2 of the other big producers. So we knew they wanted it as well. So this is a big coup for us. So we've got very strong strategic land position surrounded by 4 of the big producers. And then our second project called Carmenes in northern Spain, is the second most important mining region of Spain. And we've very interesting thing. We went up there looking for copper, cobalt, and nickel. There's some historical mines, very rich. They were feeding a smelter nearby. And then the Spanish Civil War came along and that ended all the mining and never resumed. It's sort of forgotten about. So we started the first systematic sampling on that new area last year. And, we were looking for copper, nickel, and cobalt, and we found gold. So
literally, not figuratively.
Yeah. So we've the copper, nickel, and cobalt is still really interesting, but the surprise. And let's say the new excitement is the gold potential. The scale may come from the gold on this one. And it's just the first target, and we have 25 others to go. So we've been pretty lucky, but we'll take it. So pretty exciting times for us.
Yeah, just to switch back down to south to sort of, I would say, your flagship Escacena Project. That is a VMS style copper deposit, 30 million tons, I think, in your resource, depending upon the cutoff grade. And one of the things that's interesting that stood out about that is that tin kicker, right? And because of some of that, not to get too granular, but the lack of hitting that ocean salt water and things like that. But just talk to us about what makes, well, it's 2-parter. Talk to us about that resource and why that's so exciting. And then 2, VMS deposits tend to cluster, right? This is the idea that either you'll find more of them either on this land package that you talked about or that it can grow. So maybe just expand on that.
Yeah. So there's the resource we put out was about a bit over 36 million tons, about 0.44% copper equivalent. It's not high grade, but it's open pit, comes to surface, very simple geometry and so on. About 15 to 20% of the in situ value is tin. And then we have some silver as well, which is at payable levels. So it's very simple geometry, very predictable. It's completely still open, both laterally near surface and at depth. So it looks, we used a 0.2% copper cutoff for that. We used pretty conservative metal prices for the resource calculation, $4.20, which is now it's $6.60.
6 and change, depending on the day.
So it looks like it's a viable open pit project in a fantastic location as it stands today, as a standalone project. The economics would look even phenomenal if it was a truck and shovel to one of the nearby mines. But look, so that's a great starter position to be in. So we've got a nice project, but our goal here is to grow this resource base, get to a scale that would be competitive with the other big producers in the area. So our target here is to get to 100 million tons.
Yeah.
So we can do that through a number of ways. One thing that's going to help is the higher copper prices, and we start to use a different copper price that allow us to lower cutoffs and so on. If we use a cutoff grade similar to the other open pit mines in the area, which is close to 0.15% copper, then we're nearly at 50 million tonnes already. So we can do it that way. But what we really want to do is to test some of the many other targets that we have in the area. And, I mentioned we won this big area to the south of our resource. And that's given us access to at least a dozen new, very big looking targets. And so we can see this opportunity to find a cluster of deposits, which is the way all the other big mines reach scale, is through having multiple ore bodies, a cluster of deposits feeding a common processing plant. So that's the goal. That's where the money's going.
And is that land package that you got, is that Escacena South, or how is that titled?
Yeah, Escacena South.
Okay.
So broadly, it's the Escacena Project, but the Escacena South area is the new area that we won in the public tender, and we've expanded on that a little bit more. So now we have about 15,000 hectares.
Okay, right, just bordering the south of La Romana there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
It's one big contiguous land package. Yeah, surrounded now on all four sides by four of the big operators in the area, which is pretty interesting.
yeah, if I'm looking at that, if that at that land package, is this idea there that this deposit might run sort of from northeast down, to southwest there as you kind of move southwest of La Romana there? Is that kind of the thought that?
Yeah, these things occur in trends as well as clusters.
Right.
We can see an east-west trend with other targets along that trend. We're drilling one at the moment called Cortico, just to the west of La Romana.
Right.
But then as we go further west, there's another target in this new area called Trinidad and Carmen. These are some old mine workings. This is the only area where there's any rock sticking out of the ground in this area we're calling Escacena South. And there's these old mine workings extending over about a 1 kilometre trend. So that's a pretty exciting target because for a couple of reasons. One, there's lumps of massive sulfide and gossan, which is the oxidized expression of massive sulfide, sitting on the surface. There's some old rock sampling by Exxon, which is showing percent levels of copper and tin as well as high silver. So similar metal mix to what we see at La Romana, about 4 kilometres east on the same on trend from that. So that sits on top of a big gravity anomaly. This has never been drilled. So that's a pretty exciting thing. So to your thing, there's an east-west trend. We see a parallel one to the north where we have some other targets that we're going to be drilling again this year. And then we have all these other new ones which, look like a cluster.
Yeah, it was so interesting what Jason said about all the oil companies going into southern Spain in the 1980s, and they're looking for oil, or thinking that thinking one thing and then finding out the other, and so there's just sort of this left remnants of that, right? But I do okay, a lot of land, a lot of targets. That requires a lot of money, right? So that's a great segue to a private placement that you did with the Peruvian family, the Alpayana. Thank you. $7.2 million Canadian at 16 cents a share Canadian, 45 million shares. Talk about that and talk about what that gives you, but also, what did they see in this project?
Yeah.
Why you versus somebody else? They can go all over the world. What has them excited?
At the end of last year, we did a financing, and they were just a little bit late for that. So in the meantime, we put out our minimum resource for La Romana last day of the year, and then soon after that, we did a separate private placement with Alpayana for 9.9%. So what attracted them to the project? I gave them a presentation, and they liked. Yes, they saw La Romana, saw that. Well, that's a nice pit, but they recognised, as we do, that that's just the start, and we've got this new area to the south that we won in the public tender, and he could see the potential that we see in that. And he said, "Okay, well, that's the real story here, the opportunity here that you could make multiple discoveries." So that on its own was enough to get his interest in participating. He likes the management, he liked our strategy, he liked everything we were doing, he likes the board, and the location. It's this is a mining area. It's a place where we can get things done. So he liked the gold project as well up in the north, but recognised that's very early days for us. But it was the copper thing initially. So that was the first investment. It was about a bit over 5 million, and then he went to site and visited both the Escacena project and the one in the north, and that got the excitement level up another level. So so then we were contacted and said, well, we'd like to increase our position to 19.9 or thereabouts. So we're just closing a separate private placement at 16 cents. So and that will take their position up to about at least 19.7, 19.8%, something like that.
Okay. And
so but it's a cash injection. We're going to be sitting on 12 or 13 million in the pocket. That's we started this year with plans for a 10,000 metre program. Now we've got the runway to double that, and we're now looking at a 20,000 metre program. It's great.
That's great. And that was going to be my question, is kind of where those funds were earmarked.
Yeah.
And so 20,000 meters, is I know when I spoke with Jason, El Pozo was the first target, I think, because you do have to do some permitting on Escacena South, I think.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about, I guess, has that drilling started, or is that coming in the summer? And then if so, what does the other drilling look like?
Yeah, so I mean, people ask, well, what's the split of expenditure too between the North project and the project in the South, the Escacena project? Roughly speaking, about 70% is going on the Escacena flagship project, and potentially up to 30% of our spend will be on the area up in northern Spain. So. And we've got some flexibility, obviously, depending on how the results, where the results lead us as well. So I guess the 20,000 metres of drilling, I guess you're talking about what's the split there. Most of that is going to be in the south.
And will that be so?
Yeah,
just in terms of targets.
So if I go back to we started the program back in February. We've drilled the first 3 sort of, let's say, reconnaissance drill holes, our scout drill holes at the Pozo target in the Escacena project area. Now we've moved on to a target called Cortico, which is like a satellite a target to the west of La Romana. So we've got a couple of holes planned there. And then we're moving the drill rig to Cañada Honda, which is this 3 kilometre long coincident gravity and resistivity target. We've drilled a few holes, had some nice hits. Yeah, so it's a very big target, Cañada Honda. Now we've got the money that we can go and test that one as well. So.
Yeah, so you're funded up for the drill season. You guys got plenty of targets, good land. I think that's probably a good place for us to leave it today and give everybody kind of an overview of that. We'll look to catch up with you again after the end of this drill season, and you can kind of tell us how these targets bore out.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have the permits then to be drilling in that new area to the south as well, and drilling in the north as well. We've got 2 drill rigs turning at the moment. We're looking to increase that.
Can you drill year-round there?
In the south we can. In the north, it depends on the snow. Yeah, we get snow up in the north, so that can interrupt things a little bit. Yeah.
Well, listen, Tim, thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate the time, and enjoy the rest of your trip to Frankfurt.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
That's Tim Moody, CEO of Pan Global Resources. They trade on the TSX Venture under the symbol PGZ. The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.